Hello and welcome to Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. I am your host, Mikhail Tinubu. I am joined on the line by Monday Thomas on a Monday evening. Monday, good evening to you.
It's a fantastic evening to be joined with you right here on this great platform, Plus TV. And of course, it's a great time to talk sports. Can't wait to get on with it.
All right. Now, let's talk transfers. We're not going to talk specific transfers. We're just going to talk about the pace of transfers as we've seen them so far. Usually, even before the window is open, two or three major signings have been made by some top European clubs. The only transfer worthy of note that has been made thus far has been Real Madrid and Jude Bellingham. Now, to be fair, that was not officially confirmed until just last week. And now that it is confirmed, we know Jude Bellingham is going to push into that starting 11 in midfield. Real Madrid have done a lot to prepare for the future. Camavinga has been brought in, and he's playing very well. But even there's still Chouameni, who's supposed to be the defensive midfielder for the future, although both players could play in that position, alternating with each other, even though they're both relatively close in age. And Jude Bellingham is another one who's of the same age bracket, which is, to be fair, not typical of a Real Madrid squad, buying up 20-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 18-year-olds to play in the starting 11 to be staples for the next 10 years. Usually they go for a little bit more experience, something along the lines of 23, 24. But it seems they have so much faith in these players that Real Madrid, who are one of the top clubs in the world that are known for preferring experience over youth. A lot of youth talent has gone through the Real Madrid locker room, but never quite nailed down a place. This time around, has the definition of an El Galacticos player changed for Madrid?
Certainly it has, and it's very, very to everyone to see that and also understand that it's not just a phrase, but it is a fact that change is the only constant thing. And football is changing the style where football, the fashion in where football is being executed these days has completely changed tremendously. And when it comes to the younger folks, they are the ones with the modern style of football, the likes of Vinicius Junior, Rodrigo, and the addition of Jude Bellingham is certainly going to revolutionize how Real Madrid play. And when you go back in time, you get to talk about the experience of the first Los Blancos team, the first Galacticos, yes, if I'm to put it that way, the likes of Luis Figo, David Beckham, and Zinedine Zidane. But football right now has taken a different pace, and you've got to adapt to it. No matter how many European trophies you've won with the bigger boys, with the experienced lad, but football has now completely turned things around, and it's now revolving around the young stars. And if you take a look at it, the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi, who are, of course, regarded as the greatest footballers of our generations, they are saying goodbyes, and it's time for the younger lads to step up. In the next 10 or 15 years, they'll be saying goodbyes. I'm talking about the likes of Erling Haaland, Mbappe, Jude Bellingham, the young stars of this generation, and we'll also be looking forward for another young generation to come up. But for now, I'll certainly stick with what I'm seeing right now. That the Los Blancos, they're quickly they're adapting to on what's to come in the future. In the next 2-3 years, we'll be seeing players from 22 to 23 averaging a team's starting lineup. That is what's going to happen. That's what I think is going to happen.
24 is the peak age for most players, from strikers to the midfield. When it comes to defenders, it's usually, especially centre backs, it's usually around 28. Peak performance, enough experience garnered over the course of their up to then playing career. So now let's speak about Federico Valverde. He has been nothing short of an inspirational player for Madrid ever since Zinedine Zidane brought him into the first team squad. He's 24 now. This is the time that he should be nailing a position down, his preferred position within the squad, and becoming the undroppable factor within that midfield, especially as the likes of Tony Cruz are getting to that age where it is either retire at Madrid or nothing. Cruz has made it clear he doesn't want to join any team, any club after leaving Madrid. We know the ever presence, the everlasting power of Modric, but even his power is waning at this point. So you have Federico Valverde, the power engine of the midfield, and yet, given the quality that Madrid have gone out to buy, players that should walk into any squad in world football and become regular starters, except of course perhaps for Manchester City. When it comes to Federico Valverde, are we about to lose a terrific player in the starting lineup of Madrid? And might that lead to, in the next couple of years, an inevitable move away from Madrid?
Well, every player is very distinct in the way they play football. They are very, just like we are very distinctive human beings. We have players who play in a very unique role. And I think for Real Madrid, there is no one that can do what Federico Valverde does. If you agree with me, I think he's the only box-to-box midfielder right there. He's the only midfielder that can run the length of the pitch. He can run from post to post. And also, he's a good goal scorer, not forgetting his long-range accuracy from the 18-yard box and also outside the 18-yard box. No one seems to do what he does. He might not be a creative or a very good passer, but when it comes to the dirty work, so many times we get to see Real Madrid play dirty football, and that's where Federico Valverde comes in. Jude Bellingham, I think he's just brought on for an easy transition when Luka Modric finally says goodbye. Because it's very clear that next season could be Luka Modric's last season. And when we talk Luka Modric, we've got to really sympathize with yesterday.
Let's talk midfield playmakers, however, because with Real Madrid...
That's what I'm heading to. I'm heading to somewhere. I'm talking where I'm saying that Federico Valverde will still have his place at Real Madrid's midfield. Jude Bellingham might not get into the starting lineup so soon. Like I said before, Jude Bellingham has been brought in for an easy transition of Luka Modric's era when he finally comes to an end as a Real Madrid player. So Jude Bellingham is going to be a player who's going to be monitoring and who's going to be understudying how things are being run in the midfield at Real Madrid. With no disrespect, I think he's a great player. He's a great player, Jude Bellingham, one of the finest youngsters we have in world football. But when it comes to playing in Real Madrid, he needs to understand how things work. So he's going to be on the bench for at least a whole season. I'm not saying he will not start any game, but for the most part of next season, we'll see Jude Bellingham start from the bench.
Well, you never know until the season starts. There are sometimes players go through severe decline. And they don't you can't recognize them. They don't look like the same player from the previous season. So it could be this season that Luka Modric's performances wane so significantly that Jude Bellingham has to step into the first 11 quickly. But it seems to me that when Tony Cruz and Luka Modric are finally gone from the Madrid team, it will most likely be a Jude Bellingham probably partnered with Valverde and Tchouaméni or Camavinga would be the alternating defensive midfielders. But Tchouaméni has proven that he gets to start more often than Camavinga, barring the transition that Ancelotti has tried to offer Camavinga to play in left back. But should they go out and buy a left back, and Camavinga has decided that he only wants to play in midfield, it seems to me like he's likely going to suffer. Even though he's very talented, there doesn't seem to be a lot of room for him to bench or displace anybody from the starting 11. Hello? I think we have lost Monday there. Hopefully we can get him back. Now, if Monday was still on, I would be asking this question. Do you or does anyone at home, at work, wherever, does anyone believe that Jude Bellingham is really a creative playmaker? I mean, he gets up the pitch, he contributes assists, he does help the team tick along and create chances. However, is he the kind of playmaker that at every point in the game, he's the one you look to unlock a defense? Sure, other players are in the team, especially Camavinga and Federico Valverde, who can make breaking runs into the box, who can displace and drag defenders out of position. But still, when none of those things are working, when defenses are stagnant and refusing to be moved, when there's so much staunch organization at play within opposition defenses, you need someone who's going to be present, have a presence of mind to realize who's moving into the best positions, who's able to see all of the opening spaces. That's what Luka Modric offers you, and to an extent, that's also a degree of what Toni Kroos offers you. I wonder if the Madrid midfield isn't transitioning into a midfield full of mostly box-to-box midfielders, because even though Camavinga can play in defensive midfield, and that's where he started, his ability to move with the ball has been proven to be very good. He can get into the box. He can. He does have a shot on him, a strong enough left foot that can hit top-notch strikes. He can be in positions to receive the ball. He's comfortable. He's confident. He has no real weaknesses when it comes to being offensive. Less effective than Federico Camavinga, but still, when you need someone to open up defenses, you need a playmaker. And that's why a lot of teams spend a lot of money on the very best playmakers they can find. Players who can play as number 8s, play as number 10s. And I wonder if Monday Thomas is back, because if he's back, I would love for him to chime in here. Is Jude Bellingham a playmaker capable of replacing the output of created chances that Luka Modric has offered this Madrid team? Or are we going to see a transition of playing style in midfield that is going to rely more on energy and ability to dribble and break into the box 18 rather than playmaking?
Well, when it comes to Jude Bellingham, when it comes to the middle of the park, when it comes to the center cycle, Jude Bellingham is everything plus more, I tell you. Michael, I'm not even trying to overhype the player or try to overrate him. Man is a generational talent. At the age of 19, a captain at Borussia Dortmund, man is not just a player, but he is a leader. A leader at that age. And in a football game, you need a leader. You need someone to talk to other teammates and put them in the right direction. Well, he might not be doing that at Real Madrid because obviously he's a young star and is still learning the ropes around what is happening in Madrid. But when it comes to everything that has to do with midfield, is it creativity? Is it dribbling? Is it scoring? Is it tackling? Is it fighting for your team? Jude Bellingham has everything to offer Real Madrid as far as winning games, as far as creating chances, and as far as scoring goals. So if there is ever a question if Jude Bellingham is going to be able to fit in that Real Madrid tailored kind of midfielder role, then Jude Bellingham is certainly the right person to replace the likes of Modric. And I think Modric will easily be forgotten if Jude Bellingham stays fit, because also is
let me name some of my very best playmakers of all time, aside from Xavi and Iniesta, because those are two names that are often the go-to for even the non-real fanatics of football like ourselves. But for me, it's Pirlo. it's Ozil, it's Schneider from way back 2010. And these days, I think even though he hasn't had a Champions League night all to himself, Kevin De Bruyne. These are playmakers that every touch is sublime. Every opportunity for an assist is seen three moves before they've even gotten the ball. And I just wonder because I have seen Jude Bellingham play, and I know he's capable of playing as a playmaker. But you see, if you take your mind back to the way Barcelona used to play, they had a base midfielder in Busquets who could recycle possession, keep the ball moving, ticking along with short, nifty passes to keep everyone in check. Then you had a deep line playmaker or someone we typically called a midfield general, someone who could see the whole length of the pitch, who knew without ever turning his head, could see where the left winger was or the right winger was. They knew where every positional player was at, where they are supposed to be at the moment that they are supposed to arrive there. And I just don't know if Jude Bellingham is that kind of midfielder. And of course, there was Iniesta who could move the ball up the pitch. He wasn't a traditional box-to-box midfielder because he didn't contribute as much to the defensive phase of the pitch. But he was, for probably the best description of his role was as a roaming playmaker. And Iniesta gave a lot. The Iniesta style of midfielder was what a lot of teams looked out for, a mobile playmaker. Xavi could hold the ball in midfield. Pirlo could stay in position and pick out anyone and evade any presses. Jude Bellingham doesn't seem to me like the former. He seems to me more, if we're going to say he is a playmaker, he seems to me more like in the mode of Iniesta. Do you agree? Monday, I think we lost Monday there. All right, we'll go to the actual first story of the day because sometimes we get wrapped up in these opening discussions. Now, a Dutch court sentenced former Netherlands international footballer Quincy Promes to 18 months in jail on Monday for stabbing his cousin at a family party. The Spartak Moscow forward, 31, who pleaded not guilty, was not in court in Amsterdam for the sentencing, as he currently lives in Russia. Promes stabbed his cousin in the leg at the end of a family birthday party in 2020 in a row over a stolen necklace, the court found. Anyone convicted of the offense would normally get a sentence of at least a year, but Promes got a heavier jail term because of his public profile. Prosecutors who had demanded a 2-year sentence last year dropped a charge of attempted murder against Promes. The investigation was triggered by a phone tap from a separate probe into a drug smuggling case involving Promes. Promes was charged in May with importing several hundred kilos of cocaine through the Belgian port of Antwerp in 2020. Now, that particular case, he was supposed to have been importing about $75 million, I believe, worth of cocaine. That case is still up in the air. Now, this charge just came about because he was in the middle of a conversation that revealed that he had done what he did, stabbed his cousin in the leg. I feel like once upon a time, a player gets charged with something like this, and his career is probably done. He's probably not coming back into the game, if ever, especially at 31. 18 months, not that long, although jail can make 18 months seem like a lifetime for certain people. But by the time he comes back, if he comes back in one piece, that is, will he be capable of, I don't know, getting back to a fitness level that would allow him to walk into a team that might be interested in him? He plays for a Russian team, so unfortunately, there is every chance that he will not go to jail if he chooses not to go back to Amsterdam. Um, if he chooses not to go back to the Netherlands and he doesn't go to jail, he will have a bench warrant out for him and he will never be able to go home. And there's every chance that if he ever goes to a European team, a European nation, he might get deported and sent back to the Netherlands to face the case. Do I have Monday Thomas back on the line?
Yeah, I'm back.
Welcome back. I hope our network isn't the problem. Now,
let's just hope so.
let's quickly wrap up about the Jude Bellingham. I was asking, do you see Jude Bellingham as more of a Xavi midfield general kind of playmaker or an Iniesta, a roaming playmaker who gets up the pitch and makes things happen in the tight spaces?
Well, it's quite a shame that some players are just once in a lifetime. It's going to be a very long time before we see players like Iniesta and Xavi Hernandez. You were listing your playmakers. I don't know if you can give me time. I'll also like to let people know my top playmakers. I mean, I'll go a little bit way back, the likes of Roman Riquelme, Pablo Aima, and Juan Sebastian Veron. Something very similar about these three players. All of them are from Argentina, and I think no better number 10 in world football than the ones Argentina have produced as far as the history of the game is concerned. But I think we'll have to talk about our playmakers in another
I mean, I
topic.
suppose.
But right now,
Yeah, I suppose it depends on what you're looking for from your playmaker. If it's the playmaker who's going to see every little space and deliver the slightest, most deft pass possible through the legs, through the corners, around corners, through the openings that no one saw there before.
eye of the needle.
For me,
Eye of the needle passes.
yes, eye of the needle passes. For me, there's very few that are better than Ozil, Mesut Ozil. But to your point, what do you think
Of course, we have different preference for certain, but these players, for sure, all of them bring beauty to the game. But for Jude Bellingham, like I said, Xavi and Iniesta, if you're going to compare him to Xavi and Iniesta, I think that comparison might not really work because these are two different players. Now, Jude Bellingham is a power player. Jude Bellingham is someone who likes to make things happen, and his approach is a little bit different. I mean, for Iniesta, is a slow player. He knows that everything cannot be done with power. But Jude Bellingham will want to take the ball at you, will want to make everything look very aggressive. That's the kind of player he is. And for certain, it is also needed in a game of football. But I don't think I can compare both Jude Bellingham and Iniesta and as well as Xavi. They are different style, different fashion, and different style of play. Jude Bellingham is going to bring his own uniqueness, but one thing that really matters is getting the result. And of course, from my point of view, I think Jude Bellingham is result-oriented, and he likes to take the game by the scruff of the neck.
All right. Have you heard about this Promes story? Quincy Promes being sentenced to 18 months in prison by a Dutch court.
Quincy Promes, quite a shame that he didn't live up to the very billing. I can remember in his early days, he was a very, very good winger. He used to take on players. I mean, he was highlighted as one of the best things that could come out from football. But right now, it's not just been jailed or been sentenced to jail for stabbing his cousin, but he was also involved in some cases that involve him handling some unauthorized substances. And he's been on social media, in the media, for the very wrong reasons. I mean, I can remember he used to play the Champions League for Sevilla and as well as Ajax Amsterdam. Now he plays in Spartak Moscow in Russia, where very little or nothing is even heard from him. And now he's returning to the media, he's returning to the headlines.
But
he's
I don't get it. I really don't get it. Promes has been capped 50 times. He has scored 7 goals and was part of the national team at the Euro 2020 Championships and played in 2021. How does a player like that, who is, he may not have proven himself to be the very best that Netherlands had to offer, how does a player like that go from all of that promise to being here? Because the money is good, the opportunity to play a game that you love, because I really don't understand how anyone could get it. Football to me is not the kind of thing you do as a job. You could be an accountant and that could just be a job. You could be a lawnmower. You could be a
A sports
bricklayer.
presenter.
Those are just jobs. Football is a passion. I don't see anyone getting into the sport as just a way to become rich. So, if you're playing football, I expect it to be an honor, a privilege for you that you're getting to do what you love, getting to play a childhood game in your adulthood, getting to share camaraderie, share locker rooms with fellow minded, talented players, and get paid handsomely for it. Even the least well paid players are still earning, when, if they manage their finances well, still earn way more than the average worker, the average employee. And yet this one gets into trouble for smuggling $75 million worth of drugs. And now he has been charged, convicted, and sentenced for stabbing his own cousin, even if the cousin stole a necklace. All of that, I feel like, I don't know, it sounds to me like he's behaving like a thuggish rapper.
Well, advice is advice, and you know the saying that power corrupts, and football money gives you power. And when you don't have the control, when you don't have the discipline, it tends to get you really crazy. Just like what's happening to Quincy Promes. I mean, he's got the money, he's got the passion, but he doesn't have the control. He goes around peddling drugs, goes around losing his school, he goes around not delivering on the promise. A lot of people, a lot of pundits had on him, and that's what happens. Advice is advice. It's not even the first time I've seen players gone down, dwindling their career, even after having a very promising start. I can remember Adam Johnson. Adam Johnson used to play for Manchester City. He was left-footed, glorious talent, my word.
Yeah.
But of course, he got himself in one of those two cases of rapes and assault, and he went down the pecking order. He played for Sunderland, and that is how his career just went off.
When
And
I see
that's
stories
really,
like
really
this,
embarrassing.
when I
Nathan Greenwood as well.
when I see stories like this, it's more disappointing than if it were a musician that got into this kind of trouble, because artists are around drugs, they are around vices all the time. They don't have to keep themselves at their very best. A musician, for example, his or her vocal cords, that's their special tool for making a living. So as long as they don't do anything to damage that, to break the windpipe or damage their vocal cords, they don't take too much drugs down that pipe, everything can be okay. But still, getting into the kinds of problems that land you in a prison cell, it makes no sense to me, given that football athletes, professional athletes, are some of the most well taken care of, the most focused, the most I don't know what the right word to say, perhaps the most disciplined people on the face of the planet, because they have daily training. Because if you miss one bit of training, you slide by a week of work. It's like sliding down the scale by as much as a week of work. And before you can catch up, it can take such a huge toll on you. And you may never catch up. And they have coaches, they have managers, they have so many people on hand to keep them down the path. Not only coaches at club level or coaches at national team level, but there are a lot of them these days, thanks to a revolution of personal physios, personal coaches, they have all these staff at hand to remind them to eat right, to remind them to drink water, to remind them to get enough sleep. And this one is making cataclysmic, life-shattering
You
decisions
know,
that
you
are
know,
absolutely criminal. Not just wayward.
or,
He's not making decisions about going clubbing too much. He's not making decisions about sleeping around too much. He's making criminal choices.
now I understand. I understand. I mean, I get your where you're coming from, but from that analogy that you were saying that you didn't expect this to come from a footballer who has all this disciplinary team around him, and he still has gone haywire. Now, for musicians, now I've been around a friend who was a very talented musician, and he was also in love with football. Now, do you know something? For it is psychologically, or I don't know if it's proven, but I think footballers love music. 85% of people who play football can also do music. I can remember the likes of Dribble Cisse, who is currently a DJ right now. Not just footballers, but sports persons. I mean, artists. I mean, when it comes to this, it's a special talent. And just like you're talented in music, you can be talented in football. And for some persons, they find themselves doing the two things. Okay, if it was to happen to, if this was to come out from a musician or an artist, would have been quite understandable. But I also think that as a footballer, you can also go haywire. As a footballer, you can also lose your cool. As a footballer, you can
Well,
also lose your teaching, you can lose your discipline, and you can do whatever you choose to do. It all boils down to how you were grown up. Because one club cannot completely change how you see life. One club that you join for 3 years cannot completely change how you've grown in the past 15, 18 years. And maybe that's just the situation. Spartak Moscow or Spartak, whatever trainers they have right there, whatever medical team, whatever doctors they have that should tell them what to do, what to eat, what not to do. Well, they can't just affect Quincy Promes. He's an adult and he knows what to do, and he has just gone on to do the very worst things.
all right. Well, we don't yet know if he will appeal the sentence. We don't even yet know if he will appeal the entire case as a whole. But he might not be going to prison anytime soon. Meanwhile, in his background, he did join Amsterdam Ajax in 2019 from Sevilla in a 15 million euro transfer before going back to Spartak in 2021, where he was named Russia's Footballer of the Year in 2017 during a previous spell. So he might very well choose to stick out his contract with Spartak Moscow, earn as much money as he can before then calling it quits, retiring, then going back to the Netherlands to serve his time. But we'll see. This may not be the last we hear of this.